Hey, I ain't gonna tear it out. Finally, the city did, just went in there and tore it out. And I'll maybe refer more to Sawyer, because, former city attorney Alan Vanderbloot said you can't legislate taste. So it's a fine line as to, your aesthetics. I know we've run into that with, modular homes and mobile homes being moved into the city. So I'm not disagreeing with you.
Mm-hmm.
But
How do
I'm
they-
not sure how we can effectively address that.
How do they, I'll take for example, site plan review, where there's a certain level aesthetic that's, what I'm saying? You have to have so many trees, or you have to have, how does that, that's why we have the lawyer, I know, but.
Well, with signs, that's not addressed. Basically, signs and the committee that went through it, which kind of split between Roger Sweeting and now Parmenter Law, reviewing that. There was a lot of changes at the Supreme Court level. So we had to do a lot of compliance where, like a lot of things, the state and the federal government has taken a lot of control and decisions out of the locals' hands. But there is no aesthetics. Basically, we regulate location and size.
Okay.
And we can't even, addressing your aesthetics, if you have to read the sign to regulate it, that's a violation of the Fifth Amendment,
First
Amendment.
It's a First Amendment issue.
free speech. And that was a big case that changed a lot of zoning ordinances. I think it was a church that had an A-frame sign that said, church is open, Sundays at 10 and 2.
Mhm.
And a lot with our election signs, we gutted that, because we used to say you can't put the sign up 45 days prior to an election, you had to take it down within 10. But since we had to read the sign to determine that it was an election sign, we've now crossed the line of the First Amendment. So it really so we just gutted that. It's, I think there's no time restrictions whatsoever on the signs anymore. And it's just pretty much location.
So basically, it kind of goes down to working with property owners individually and asking nicely?
It does, and I don't know how, we can talk to the attorneys if there's something more we can do, but if there's an old sign, and no business,
Yeah.
if it's the frame, because I know, from my perspective, if they're just changing out the panels, and the
Right,
frame stays and the post stays, they typically don't even need a sign permit.
right.
Because again, it's the wording, the First Amendment stuff that we're trying to avoid. So it's the structure we regulate, not what's in the structure. We can come back and see if there's something more we can tighten down on that.
Kind of curious.
I have a question. So election signs have no time limit anymore? Is that what I understand from what you said?
They don't.
What about people put up advertising signs that look like election signs, come and get your dog groomed here, or whatever, whatever kind of thing they might put up. And so I'm assuming that anybody can do anything like that anywhere they want, anytime they want. Is that right?
No.
Okay,
No.
well, what is?
We do, and I'm trying to go by memory, we allow so many of those yard signs per foot frontage of the house. And I don't remember what it is, I'm looking over to some planning commissioners.
It's
to help me
not
out.
not on city property
Yeah.
though. That's-
On
that's
your
the big
property, you can have, and I don't remember what it is, so many yard signs in a residential area per linear foot of frontage on the road. And I think the average is probably 5 of those signs. So you can put them up and they can stay there,
All year round.
yeah.
Well,
But they can't be on the city right away.
Correct, there is a provision where the city council could allow signs like, we do out here in front of City Hall now and then. But yeah, if it's on your property, and you don't violate the square footage or the location, you're good to go.
thanks.
Yep.
Anything further on that one? All right.
What's the what, I guess the other question is, would it say that it's signs there and there's no longer the business, is there a light side that we could go with that? The attorney isn't saying a whole lot. He's doing all this.
So if you want me to chime in, I think some of that could be a blight ordinance, if you have a rundown sign, goes to blight. But then the other thing, when we talk, the Supreme Court's gonna categorize it as what type of speech is it. If we're talking about political speech, if you try to regulate that, the city is probably gonna lose a legal challenge to regulating political speech. Commercial speech, like advertising your business, is a lesser standard, but still, it's still speech, and there's very strong protections under the First Amendment and the case law that follows. So you need a substantial interest, a government interest, to advance. Whatever your regulation does, it has to advance some sort of compelling government interest. Now, the government interest I typically think of are health, safety, welfare, and an aesthetic. Putting a regulation on aesthetics doesn't really go to the
Doesn't
health,
meet those,
safety, welfare.
The
I
sign's
think
gonna fall and hit them on the sidewalk then.
exactly.
So like the plywood that was hanging
Yeah, if it
from,
falls, I
from
mean,
the.
it's not safe.
It's now gnarly heifer sign, which
Yeah.
they fixed, but
So
just
I
two
think-
sheets of plywood with a rope on.
Right. So I think to accomplish what you want to accomplish is more through the planning commission, site plan approval, before these businesses even, get their plan, whatever type of approval from the city, we condition that with some sort of aesthetics that the city finds they think is worth making that a condition to the approval. But now, right now, trying to regulate the existing signs is going to be difficult, and approaching it from an aesthetic, if that's the interest we're trying to forward, that's not going to meet the standard. Now, there's also, you can regulate the time, place, and manner is what the Supreme Court will call it, and that would be like the size, placement, and that can be done so long as you're not discriminating on the viewpoint. So you can't say, well, it's a marijuana sign, it needs to be smaller than the rest, because that now it's not content neutral. If it has to do with marijuana, they are subject to different laws with it, which is bad. But then again, you have to show that there's a government interest that you're serving, and then beyond that, it needs to be usually what they call narrowly tailored, meaning it has to do exactly what you want it to do. It can't accidentally regulate signage that you didn't mean to, and it can't leave signage that you want to regulate out of the ordinance. So it's difficult. It's a very difficult standard, is the long and short of it. But
So
I
like
think there's
the big bucks.
yeah, I think there's other ways. There's other ways to address your concerns. I think it's blight for things that are dangerous, because blight ordinances go to the health, safety, and welfare, and that's why you don't get grandfathered into things like the blight ordinance. And then from an aesthetic goal, I think
It takes care of 95% of the aesthetics, so to speak.
You're right.
Just the blight portion.
Okay, well then that would be my suggestion.
I have a question. On city right-of-ways, most of the roads they own, the city owns 33 feet both sides from the center, or approximately, not always. But in some cases, someone's lot description in the county may say that they own to the center of the road. Now, does that mean that that person could put a sign right next to the road and the city can't do anything about it? Or how would you know going around town which signs were on city property and which ones were not?
It's just from a zoning perspective, most of those descriptions, because I actually have it at my house on White Lake Drive, it excludes. It basically says I own to the middle of White Lake Drive, excluding the southern 33 feet. So it's kind of an odd kind of a description.
It's yours, but it's not.
Right, it's,
You pay taxes on it, but
I hope.
you can't use it.
A good survey would reveal all of that.
It's just a standard easement, so to speak, right?
Basically, yep. There's a lot of that. I think a lot of
So
them
it's
on
an
White Lake
easement
Drive.
if they don't own it, though. If the city has an easement.
Yeah, if the city has an easement, we don't own the property, but we have the right to use it for the purpose of the easement. And if that's a road, then we can put a road in. If they think that because they still own it, they can put a sign in it. You cannot interfere with the right of the easement holder. That's probably a real horrible legal phrase, but you can't interfere with the rights of the person who has the easement. So if they're putting a sign in the middle of the road, that's obviously a traffic hazard, and we can pull it out.
All right.
As a rule of thumb, though, if it's got the area between the sidewalk and the road, we consider that the right of way. So we've pulled up signs and gone to the door and say, hey, you gotta have it inside your sidewalk.
And if the sidewalk's there, it's the next best thing is the telephone poles, my understanding.
So another good
Close.
rule of thumb kind of
Yeah,
thing.
that's what I heard.
That's a very user-friendly way to handle it. A lot of municipalities pick them up and throw them in the dumpster.
Does that include yard sale signs also?
Yep.
So technically, these people that are putting it out on the terraces shouldn't be doing it.
Correct.
Telephone poles, all that stuff eventually.
Yeah.
Is this an inappropriate time to chime in?
Well, I think we're ready, we need to do a public comment, so at this point, yes.
So
Public
on that same topic there, at other city meetings, going back to a previous conversation or comment I made about compliance versus enforcement. In another way of looking at that sign thing, at other city commission meetings, they have created a grant. They've called it a grant program. It's limited, so only has so much money in it per year, per fiscal year. And local businesses apply, and that grant then, if it's approved, those dollars go, you'll have to do some research on it. But then that grant money from the city matches or whatever that area business, dollar for dollar, to upgrade their business's sign. So instead of penalizing them for blight, you're encouraging them to upgrade. Again, it's, do you want to hammer them or do you want to encourage them?
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
What Ray's talking about, I'm Carl Calkins. I was on city council in Roosevelt Park until just recently, and I was on it when we passed the 5-foot passing rule for Roosevelt Park, but it's, in Roosevelt Park, it's called facade improvement grants. And it's matching dollars up to, I think it's 10 grand every certain number of years, and it comes from the DDA money.
We have very similar in our downtown.
So, and it did get people to improve quite a few ugly things that we couldn't figure out how to get rid of.
It's kind of the Colby corridor, where it ends in the downtown. There's a lot of, it's not as welcoming, on the other side of Colby. It'd be nice to be able to extend the beautification process all the way to the highway where people are coming into town versus, just the downtown.
Well, the drawback with that is that we technically have a tax increment finance authority, which by state law only allows us to spend money within the district.
Right.
DDAs allow you to spend money to the benefit of the district, so you can spend outside the district.
So you have to redraw it, basically.
No, we don't want to redraw.
Well, I know we don't, but
Tax
that's
revenue.
that's the side of that.
But you could start anew. It would, I don't know if commercial corridors still exist or not. I know Muskegon was looking at one of those a few years back. But yeah, we're a little bit limited as to where we can offer those incentives.
Yes, sir.
Did you have any information on ALS response time, or did I miss something?
Well, we didn't get to that time-wise.
Oh, okay, so we won't,
There's-
okay, no problem, just curious.
What's that?
Back in May, we'll put it on the May.
Yeah, we'll put it back on the May work session. But unless there's any further comments from the public, all right, I'll adjourn this meeting and we'll meet in the council chambers.
Attorney got mine.
Probably, he's got some chunk. We oftentimes have stretch goals as far as our work session agendas go.